What's happening, everybody? Welcome to IGN Unfiltered. I'm Ryan McCaffrey, your host. This is my monthly-ish, occasional interview series where we take a deep dive with some of the best, brightest, and most interesting minds in the video game industry. Today, my guest is none other than Justin Roiland, he of Squanch Games. You started yourself a video game studio, and this December, Justin, you and your team are putting out a video game called High on Life, which we've been showing the heck out of on IGN, and everybody's digging it.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the reaction. It's exciting for the team because, you know, we did Trover in VR and it was just crickets, you know. But I don't know why or what. It could, you know, there's probably a bunch of reasons. But and then this one, you know, it's been night and day, just insane. So we're really, really hopeful for it. And we definitely, it's a labor of love. I mean, everybody on the team is just, it's exciting when you've got a big group of people that all are super pumped and believe in what we're making and just want to, like, yeah, it's different than when people are just like clocking in and like, all right, I got to do my, you know. This is like everybody's just so excited about this game.
Well, we're gonna talk a lot about High on Life. With this show, I love to just kind of take a walk through your career a little bit, because you know, in doing a little research, because I'm a huge fan of Rick and Morty, everything, solar opposites, so I'm thrilled to meet you here and have you here at IGN, so I appreciate it. And looking it up, you and I are the same age, born the same year, so I always love to ask all my guests, and now especially you, because I'm curious how you'll match up with me, is like, what are your...
How do you plan to die? No, just
oh, wait, is that one of the questions we're doing?
You pick your vices, right? Like, you can, no.
But like, what are some of your earliest video game memories? Like, is it Nintendo for you, or did you even have like an Atari in the house?
No, Nintendo for sure. Yeah, mine was. I don't know. I feel like I was pretty keyed in as a kid. You know, I kind of knew what was going on. I knew the toys that I want. You know, I was constantly glued to the TV watching the commercials. I somehow missed the Nintendo ad campaign. And so I'm down the street. I grew up out in like Almond, you know, farm.
Yeah, out in like Central California.
Yeah,
there.
So I had to walk like a mile down the street to hang out with, you know, the nearest friend that was out there, you know, going to school with me. And hanging out with him, this kid Buck, and his name was Buck. Can you imagine that? Anyway, and he had a Nintendo, and he had Super Mario Brothers. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding? I had such a filthy mouth as a kid. His mom didn't like me because she thought I was trouble because of my swearing all the time. But I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? What in the fuck is this shit? And I'm just playing. I'm like, when the fuck and how do you like? And so then from that point on, it was just me begging my mom and dad, please, for fuck's sake, like, you know. And I wasn't saying that to. Well, actually, I did swear. My parents did not care. They were so. You know, letting me watch horror movies when I was in first grade, like just the worst shit ever. I think I turned out okay, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, and then I finally got it, and it was like Mario Brothers, you know, like the old Rampage, Wall Street Kid, which I could never figure out. I was like, what in the fuck do I do? Like my dad was beating it. I'm like, what things are you picking up on? I don't understand. And then of course Zelda and Metroid was like, the Metroid just like, that game really was like, you know, I would just leave it on and have the music playing in the back. Like it was on constantly because, you know, back then you turn it off and it started. I wasn't going to sit there and type in a fucking
the
nonsense.
Password save
I tried it a few times and I was like, this is not.
So how were you able to eventually, you know, win your parents over to get you the Nintendo? Because for me, it was first communion money. It's like, I'm going to say I'm saving all, and then I'm buying the Nintendo, which was like, I think either $100 or $120 back then.
No, my friend Jackie would be like, you got it the next day. But the truth is, no, I had to, we were like middle class, you know, my dad was smart and he bought like a nice plot of land with almond trees. And so there was like, you know, aside from my parents both working, like they had that money coming in and to offset, you know, the mortgage on the house, blah, blah. It was like middle class, you know? So it wasn't like just money getting thrown around like crazy. So that was a big one. So, you know, I had to beg and plead for a while before I got my own. But I think I don't know, like I stopped asking for plastic action figures and it was just purely like just this, like, you know, I don't even know how, I wish I could remember specifically, like, but I bet I probably and I was probably like mapping out like, okay, let's just say one action figure is this much money, right? And we get the action figure. You know, I will take a sabbatical from action figures for this long. You know, I don't know.
Making deals, cutting deals with your parents.
But
for
it took
Nintendo
a while,
games.
and I had to mow the lawn, and I had to, I don't know what I had to do, like go spray weeds and go, you know, and we'll log your hours. I had to do that shit, you know, go rake the almonds before the harvest, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's how I got my Sega Genesis, was I had to work that summer 8-hour days, and my dad was like $2 an hour, some like really fucked up, you know what I mean? Like,
but it seemed good to you.
Well, I didn't know that any better. So me and my friends when I was growing up, we would go out with rakes, and we would, any stray almonds, we would just, not leaves, almonds. We would rake the almonds into that pile down the middle of the almond lanes, so that when they would go pick them up, all these missed almonds would get harvested. But and that's how I got my Genesis, because that was the next one that I was like, holy fucking shit. I was like, went from...
Sega does what Nintendo don't.
I was caught up. Well, the truth was, there was a place in my town that had, like, you would go in and you would pay $5 an hour, and you would sit down and you could just put headphones on and you could grab any games they had and just play.
I had a place like that too, called Gamers, and you could just rent time by the hour on any of the systems
and just like go. And I went and I remember the Superman game, Sonic, or sorry, not Superman, Spider-Man. That old school early Genesis Spider-Man with the music is still just in my brain. But that and Sonic and just Sega seemed to, for me, I don't know what it was back then. It was like the music and I can't remember truly if
the sports games were, the EA sports games were better on Genesis.
I wasn't a sports games person. Yeah, I was more like, I like the weird platformer action adventure, you know, like weird, like Decap Attack, as awful as it is, or Toki, or you know, anything that the art. I was more like, or like World of Illusion or Castle of Illusion. Like, I love the art style. I love like platformy stuff, and like really cool like art direction was like just grabbed me, and then I would get just stabbed in the gut. You know, it's like, oh, what a piece of shit this game. You know, this game fucking sucks, but it looks cool. I got tricked so many times, but I can't remember. Did Genesis came out first, right, before Super Nintendo, or am I wrong about that? I'm trying to remember if they had both there.
Now I'm blanking on it too, now that you're putting me on the spot. Because I had a Genesis before I had a Super Nintendo. But I don't know if you were like me. I could only have one console at a time. I never had more than one in the house.
I eventually saved up money and got the Super Nintendo, and it was like, holy shit, was there all kinds of good stuff to discover. But for some reason, for a while, it was just Genesis. And I don't know, there were certain games that reinforced my choice. Because, like, I don't know if you remember the old Beavis and Butthead games, but like if you go back and you play the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo, the Genesis version is thoughtful. It's like an adventure. You're picking up inventory. It's more of like an adventure style, like, you know, top down. You're moving around a world. It's fucking great. And then look, you know, it's great for that time. Then you go and play the Super Nintendo version, and you're just like, fuck this shit. This is just a shitty, bad, like, side scroller that's just not. It's just like a frustrating, angry video game.
Well, it was like when Mortal Kombat was. You had the sweat on the Super Nintendo version versus the blood.
And that's another example. You know, when you're a little kid, or whatever, however old I was, you're just like, you get caught up in that, like, fuck Nintendo. But then after I got a little older, I was like, no, this is like, oh my god, look at. It was just a great. You know, I got it for cheaper, and I got this massive library of an amazing like Earthbound and. Obviously Mario, you know, Super Mario World, and I mean just all the stuff that I had missed, and it was just like, holy, I was like fed with
Pilot
content.
Wings, all that stuff.
Oh my god, all of it. Yeah, I mean just
and by the way, we were remembering correctly, Genesis did hit first.
Okay.
So we were on the money with that.
That's right. So I think when I was going to that place, there wasn't a Super Nintendo for me to like hook up and try out. You know what I mean? And if there had been, I would have been just as like taken. I would have been like, oh god, I want them both, you know, but. It just so happened that Genesis was all they had, and so I just, you know, I was playing all those, and I was like, I don't want to be in this shitty building for $5 an hour. I want to be in my house playing this, but yeah.
Well, let me fast forward a little bit. So, you know, I'm kind of curious with you growing up and kind of high school, college, and ultimately into your career, because to me, being a fan of your work, improvisation, ad-libbing seem to be like hallmarks of everything you do, including High on Life, which we're showing off.
Like I would say Trover was like 70-30, with 70% being ad-libbed.
Wait, 70 ad-libbed?
Yeah,
70
Trover.
ad-libbed?
Yeah, I might be a little off there. Like Spencer was my writing partner or like head writer on that game. Sorry, I just touched the mic. But Spencer was my head writer on that game, and it was like there were just a lot of circumstances that caused that game to be a lot ad-libbed, and I think it was because I temped a bunch of stuff thinking we would replace it later. And then we get far enough into production, and it's like it's you know what, we don't have time to. Not only is it like everyone likes it, it's fine, but like we have fires everywhere. We can't and so we focused on where we needed to focus. But with this game, it was a flip. It was like 70 scripted, 30% ad lib.
Yeah.
And it my writer Alec Robbins, fucking brilliant, amazing writer, and just an incredible addition to the Squanch team. And it was just like, couldn't have been a better process. It was like, really solid pages with really great jumping off points. And certain actors did way more ad-libbing than others. So like JB, I'm sure we're going to get into.
We'll have, people have already seen that by the time this interview airs.
So JB did a lot of ad-libbing, and it was encouraged. I mean, that's like...
Sure, I mean, that's his bread and butter, right?
Like Curb is essentially an outline show, and they know, when they go to shoot a scene, they know like the beginning, middle, and end. They know every character's sort of point of view and perspective, and then they just run scenes. And, JB's like one of the best, out there. And I was like, dude, like if once he kind of understood, the scene and what was going on, he could just go. And it was, and we're, that it's like us going the extra mile to make sure that's what gets in the game and not just the scripted, like what's on the page.
So I'm curious then, given that improv is a through line through your stuff, and that we are the same age, I'm wondering if you, like me, watched a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000 growing up, and or Whose Line Is It Anyway? The old British version.
I wasn't as, I don't know how I kind of missed the boat on Whose Line. I'd seen a little bit here and there. I was glued to MST3K.
Yeah, me too.
When I want to say a sophomore in high school, that summer, or maybe it was the summer after freshman, in between freshman and sophomore, we got a satellite dish. Keep in mind, up to that point, I just had like 5 channels growing up, right? Except for the 1 year I lived in Florida, I had cable, but that was a nightmare year, awful, but I had cable. But like finally got a satellite dish with everything. And
including Comedy Central.
Yes, and so I went completely nocturnal that summer. So I would sleep till like 6 p.m. I'd get up, and I would have either the night before like highlighted all the satellites I was going to turn to at what time and what channels I was going to be on, and I literally would highlight out for the entire night until like 6 or 7 a.m. And then I would go to sleep.
Because MST3K aired at midnight back in those days.
Yeah, and it was such a. When I get really sick with something, which thank God, knock on wood, hasn't happened in a while, like I don't know what it is, but MST3K is like the most peaceful.
I know what you mean.
It just makes me feel so good to watch it. Just put it on. I had swine flu in 2010. Can you imagine? I got fucking swine flu.
Yeah, that's.
And that was I was so sick I couldn't play video games. I remember I was just like, I can't even fucking do this. And so it was just MST3K got me through it, and it was like. Oh my God! It was the best medicine. I mean, it was just incredible. And to this day, like if I'm really sick, like that's what I go to. Like and again, haven't been in a while, luckily. But and then there was a bunch of weird Comedy Central stuff. And then there was like, God, I would jump over to. I don't even know, man. I just had the whole night mapped out. There were kids in the hall, like constantly.
I was literally going to ask that next.
Yeah. Early, and by the way, speaking of, we have Kevin McDonald in the game.
Really? I didn't know that.
No, I mean,
that's so good.
Like, even with Rick and Morty, like it was always fun in the early days to like could we get like
invite your heroes?
Like, these awesome people like Dana Carvey we got on Rick and Morty, and like just people that you just grew up really loving and. And just being able to get folks like that. And then, same with the game. It's like, who can we get, like that would be really fun. And then of course, all my cool friends and like all my funny friends, like, and who wants to just play in the sandbox and like a big one is Joel Haver. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I'm not, no.
So everyone would know him as the little kid that you deal with, I'm so shootable. Like,
Oh,
shoot me.
okay, yeah.
That little, yeah. What is his name? I forget his name. He's got a name, and he says it a lot. But anyway, so yeah, he's doing a lot of voices in the game, and he kind of became like me, him, and Alec, my head writer, do a lot of. Alec does pseudo, and like he does just a bunch of like weird interdimensional cable commercials, and same with Joel. But Joel Haver also is pretty well known because his YouTube channel blew up for. He does these really cool rotoscoped, like animated, and their video game, like he has one with like I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's like this like RPG style, like, you know, sort of Bethesda style game, and it's like a guy in chainmail, and he's like huzzah, and he's gonna fight, you know, goes on a mission and he kills a rat, and I don't know. Anyway, it's Joel Haver on YouTube. He's really funny, and the crazy thing about that was like, I saw his video and he was starting to blow up, and I was like, I go to like find him on Instagram and reach out to him, and I discovered that he had messaged me like months before he blew up, like, you know, with a link to his stuff, and I'm like, how? Because I don't understand how. I mean, I'm sure if I took the time, the DMs and all of it, I just don't know what the fuck Instagram. Like, how do you sort them by most recent? How do you like? I won't see anything, and all of a sudden I'll go and check, and I'll be like, where the fuck are all these? Now I've got a bunch of like verified people, but how do I get to them?
Right.
Because now they're there, and like I don't have them normally. I just gave up. I was like, I don't understand this. So anyway, he messaged me. I never saw it, and it was just, you know, we hit it off, and he came in, and we had him in the writer's room for the game, and like, just, he's brought a lot to it, but he's literally the ant guy. Like in the beginning of the game, he's like very there. Like he's doing Little Kid, he's doing Slumsley, that's the name. And then he's doing the ant guys with Fred Stoller, and just, it's madness.
So like, comedy clearly has been a big part of your life growing up. Like, did you always want to be either an actor or showrunner, or like what was like young Justin Roiland's career aspiration?
I always wanted to build worlds, animation, you know, like I never wanted to be on camera. I never had any acting aspirations. It was always like, I want to create worlds. I didn't even think I had aspirations to do voices. I think it was more just like, I want to create, like, you know, I remember when I was a kid being a big fan of Ren and Stimpy, a big fan of Beavis and Butthead. You know, there's more, like obviously Simpsons, you know, but, you know, just that was like, wow, wouldn't it be fun to build? And then other crazy shows, like, you know, I grew up watching, I mean, you want to get way back when I was really little, like really tiny, like the Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters, and, you know, all the classic, like, Deke.
Actual, you know, Saturday morning cartoon stuff.
Yeah, and so it was always like, God, and I always was an artist, like drawing, and I'd create all these casts of characters, and so yeah, it was always more world building, character stuff, and that was, and then it kind of, I never really, it's weird, I always, it was in the back there as like a driving force, but it wasn't super, almost subconscious, you know, like I was like moving in that direction and working really hard in that direction without really consciously realizing, you know, I don't know, like, yeah, but the dream was to sell a show. That was like the dream. And when I was working in reality TV, it was like all reality TV ideas, because that was the world I was in. So I'm like, okay, what's a good, weird reality TV idea that I can come up with? And came up with a lot of really interesting, clever ideas, but it was just, that's such a weird fucking scene, man, reality TV. But
is that your college years? Because when I was looking you up, there's kind of a gap in your Wikipedia between high school and then, you know, going to getting connected with Dan Harmon.
Oh,
so
sure.
Where you're like, apparently you moved to Texas?
No, that's not true. No, never was in Texas. That's weird.
We'll go edit. Somebody go edit that.
Yeah, edit that out. No, I never lived in Texas. So I moved to LA. I dropped out of college, or whatever. I didn't drop. I just was like, fuck this. And my friend Jamie was like, I called her and said, hey, we're thinking of coming to LA this weekend. Are you around? And she's like, if you come by yourself, I can get you a job as a PA for a day on this on this show that I'm producing, or working as a producer on. It was called Ultimate Revenge. Ryan Seacrest was the host. Woody Frazier Productions. It's like a hidden camera prank show where you set up your friend to get revenge on them for some fucking slight that, you know. And So I did it. So I was like, fucking, I'm in. So I went there. I worked that Saturday, and then by the end of the day, oh God, I wish I could remember her name, but the production manager basically said, "Do you want a full-time gig?"
Wow, you must have had a good day.
Yeah. Well, I was like, this is fucking.
You'd arrived. Yeah.
Well, I was just like, what do you need?
Like the door is open. You're charging
I was
through
on. I was like, does someone need a chair? Like, does someone need a, like, I was just like, what do I do? Like, I was so excited to be in that world, just anything even adjacent to the entertainment industry, that I was just fucking on. And so by the end of the day, she's like, hey, like, we need to fill the slot, for the rest of the season. Would you want it? I'm like, yes. Drove back the next day, drove back at the end of shooting. So I'm like exhausted, but whatever, it was fine. And I luckily didn't crash. I don't fall asleep when I'm driving. I don't know. I just can't.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Couldn't fall asleep in school.
It's not recommended to fall asleep while you're driving.
But I can't. Like I physically have never been able to. I couldn't fall asleep in school ever. Wanted to, couldn't. But anyway, so yeah, and then I drove back Sunday and was there for Monday, and like I moved to LA overnight basically.
Wow.
Yeah, was staying in a hotel for the first week, paying like $10 over my daily rate to stay at this. I was like losing money for the first week just to like get my footing and figure out where the fuck am I gonna live.
Yeah.
But then and it just reality TV was my life. And so a lot of if you go to IMDb, a lot of my credits are like all these weird, obscure, People's Champion and a lot of what is it? What the fuck was it? Like First TV or something? Like guys that did BattleBots.
Oh yeah.
They had a show. They imported a UK show called Trigger Happy TV that I worked on. Just a bunch of random shit that I worked on Crossballs. That's where I met like Rich Fulcher, Andy Daly, Matt Besser. Just all these. That was the first show where I was like, oh my God, I'm working in a comedy. I'm working in the scene that I want to really be closer to. And anyway, I worked on Extreme Makeover Home Edition as an associate producer. That was fucking insane. I've got stories, but anyway, yeah, a lot of that stuff, like working. And then my nights and weekends were Channel 101, like making me and my buddy Savan and Abed making, writing, recording, and animating these little shorts that we would do, and learning the Dan Harmon kind of story circle, like really, that was my kind of college. That was my real training of like, right. Okay, how do I really craft a narrative that has curvature, that feels like a beginning, middle, and end, that, and then House of Cosby's was where I really cracked I was like, oh, okay, like it kind of was like, oh, I see this now, but.
So anyway. If the dream was to sell a show then, when you sell Rick and Morty to Adult Swim, what's that? Walk me through that day.
Well, it wasn't. That's the thing. It wasn't. It's never just a day, man. It's like a period of. It's like a slog and hoops you got to jump through and all kinds of craziness. I mean, there's so many little mini stories to the lead up from, Dan and I talking, and he's like, Adult Swim wants a show. I'd love to partner with you. Do you have any ideas? And I'm like, well, what about the
Doc and Marty thing?
Yeah, the Doc and Marty characters. And he's like, fuck yeah, I love it. That's the perfect energy to build a frame around. And so, and then from that point to getting the green light to series, holy shit, was there like a journey there,
Are your parents super supportive along the way, by the way?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, even just I'll be honest with you, like I was floundering back home. I don't know what the fuck I was gonna do. I just wasn't feeling like the bachelor degree or the associate's, I just wasn't like, I was dropping classes right before you. Do you know what I mean? It was like that day where it's like, if I don't drop this, it's going to hit my GPA. Yep. So like, I was just like, half my class is gone, but every single semester, like right before that point. But then I'd keep the ones, like I kept Photoshop, I kept Premiere, Adobe Premiere, I kept the journalism class because I was doing comics and they're terrible. But it was just me like figuring out my voice and and stuff. But yeah, like getting back to like what ends up happening is when you work hard and long enough, by the time you get the big win, the big like holy shit we have a show, it's not as
It's not like a movie.
No, it's not like winning the lottery, like popping champagne.
Right.
It's sort of like, it's like, okay, all right, we got to, now the real work starts,
yeah.
right? It's like, by the time it actually happens, and this isn't the case for everybody. Some people will hit the lottery, quote unquote, metaphorically, like really young, and it is the like, holy fuck, and they go fucking crazy, and it's like, and I never got that. Mine was like this long burn, and by the time we got, and we had worked and done a bunch of, we had like Acceptable TV that we did, in 2006, 2007. That was like, Jack Black, and it was on fucking VH1. It's like the worst channel for a sketch show, like a comedy sketch show. But anyway, so we, that didn't continue. That was like this real crazy slog. And, again, nobody knows about that, but there's like crazy stories about how hard that show was to make, because we were literally producing content in 4 days, so that like the audience was voting on what would come back, and then we had 4 days to literally, from soup to nuts, have something. And I was running the animation department, plus I was in a bunch of sketches, so I was getting pulled left and right. And I had an amazing core team in the animation department that were just crunching. I mean, we were living in that place. We were sleeping under our desks. We were there full time, 24/7, basically, once the show got onto air, because they kept voting back the animated thing. So every week we had to deliver in 4 days. It was fucking bonkers. But
do you think that helped kind of ground you in a way, that you didn't have like some overnight
absolutely.
firework?
Yeah. No, I think, well, and also just my upbringing and stuff. I'm pretty humble, and I'm pretty, I mean, look, this sounds like, truthfully, like I don't really crave the spotlight. I like to kind of hide behind the stuff I'm making. And yeah, I tend to be pretty down to earth, and just, I like to be around people that are, smart and, yeah, just normal, I guess, that's for lack of a better, and I stay as far away from politics so I can hang out with a lot of different people, which I think is great. And, but yeah, no, it's, I attribute that more to my upbringing and stuff. But I will say, like, I'm very thankful I didn't achieve some kind of success early, because I was I was wild. I was out of my mind when I was in my 20s. I was crazy.
What does that mean?
Just like fucking nuts. I was like, I had all this energy. I was just like, I don't know, like
like you'd have spent a bunch of money on something stupid. And
no, not even that. I would have been perceived as like, God, I don't even know how to. I don't know. It just would have been like.
It wouldn't have gone well.
Yeah, it would have been more. Yeah, it was perfect the way it happened. It needed to happen the way it happened. Yeah.
So when you get the 70 episode order for Rick and Morty, when that comes along, are you able to enjoy that success? Because that's a big deal.
No.
No?
I mean, not really. It was sort of like, it was like, a mixture of, okay, this is awesome and crazy, but almost outside of body kind of, like not really, to this day, still haven't really connected with the reality of it, even though we're, headlong into season 6 airing and writing on, I mean, it's moving. So no, still haven't really connected with that, yeah, it's crazy. Have
you celebrated that in any way, shape, or form for yourself, or is it just like right back to it?
I plan to, like, I'm building a studio. I'm doing things that I'm like, I think that's going to be the big, like, this coming 2023, is going to be like sort of, we're shipping this game. Obviously, we have more work to do post ship, but like, it's 2023 is going to be nice because there's a lot of stuff off my plate. I'm developing a lot of cool stuff. Other people, like people I love, people who I think are brilliant. I'm helping them. Like I want to get some of these people. Like, you should have a fucking show. Like, you need an animated show. Like, just people that I love and that I just want to watch what they make. As a fan. So I'm like, if I can help people like that, I'm in a great position to be able to do that now. And so there's a lot of that, and then obviously the game stuff is just took me by surprise. Like, I didn't realize how much, because again, we talked about Nintendo and Sega, but like I from Nintendo was like, I was glued. I mean, I had every console. At that point, once I started working and had my own money, like my priority was video games, like consoles and games, and that was like the number one. Handheld was massive for me, like huge, and but also console, all of it, So I had everything. I mean, anything I can get my hands on, and I even took out like credit cards to get, I worked at Best Buy and I got a Best Buy card to buy my GameCube and the games. I just reckless, but I was like, this is important for me. It was like it was huge. So I didn't realize how much game design and just just game mechanics and stuff that works and doesn't, and things I like and that I don't like, that I had absorbed over the years. It was dormant.
Yeah.
But as a fan and gamer, I could comment and talk about things, but I wasn't ever using that in the idea of making a video game was so far from reality for me.
Yeah.
And then the VR thing was just like, it just got me to a point of absolute, I just was like, I need to play. I want to build in this sandbox. Yeah. I need to. And so I was like, anything. Like, I'll do any. Like, it was insane how, I was like, I would do anything. Like, anything to just make games and experiences in this crazy technology. And so that's how the studio started. But now we're kind of finishing. Well, way back then, finishing Trover. It was this epiphany of like, holy fuck! I built the fucking game studio. I mean, Tanya helped me do it. We built a game studio. Like, we could just make a fucking game. We could just make a regular video game. I never even that wasn't even ever in my mind. The gateway drug, so to speak, was VR. And then here we are now with the game studio, and it was like, holy fuck! Like, I've got this amazing team. They love working on this stuff. Like, let's just make a traditional shooter. And I had the talking gun idea, and I was just like, these talking gun. Every fucking few months, I was like, oh my god, when is the talking game gonna get announced? The talking gun game.
You were waiting for someone else, the other shoe to drop.
It's happened before, where it's like, it's happened before. So where it's like in the zeitgeist, it's like, other people are thinking about it, and then somebody might have been thinking about it a while before, it popped into my imagination. And so, and I mean, the original design for Trover was, because I was trying to go room scale, and you would have had a talking gun in that game, originally. Yeah. And once we got the deal with Sony, it was like, I was very aware, like, okay, the Morpheus or the PlayStation VR was, in my opinion, best as a seated, VR 180 VR experience. So I wanted that. I wanted those control. I wanted the gamepad, and I was playing really cool VR games on the the fuck was it? The Samsung Gear VR. Oh yeah. And there was a lot of good games that were not a lot. There was a handful of games that were third person. I was like, this is fucking amazing. But the one thing they weren't doing, they were just using the VR as a glorified camera. Yeah. And I wanted to. For me, I was like, I want players to be there. I want players to be part of the story, and the characters are talking to you, but you're controlling a character in third person. So that became Trover, and but then later on it was like, oh fuck, we could just make we can get back to the talking gun idea. And so it was like, I remember talking to Robert Kirkman so long ago, and I was telling him about this. We're in pre-pro, early days on High on Life, before we even knew it was going to be called High on Life. Before the High on Life part even, all that stuff even was part of it. And I was telling him about the talking gun game, and he's just like, fuck, he's like, God damn it, I was literally thinking about just kind of building a new comic about talking gun. I never got into the details of it, but he was thinking about doing a new comic series with surrounding talking guns. Yeah. I don't think they would have been aliens. I think or maybe it would have just one talking gun. I don't even know. I should ask him more about it. But I'll never forget his reaction. He was like, God damn, fuck. How far in are you? How long? I'm like, oh no, we're this has been, So it was and then that's what really got me scared, because I'm like, there's gonna be a trailer that hits at one of these E3s or one of these and it's
So
gonna.
you're not even enjoying the E3 like.
No, I love
shows.
E3. Oh, I love. No.
Well, so you were still able to enjoy them without waiting for that.
Yeah.
That
It was
shoe to
more
drop.
just like, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? And honestly, even if it did, I always felt pretty confident that our version of it would be so different than someone else's that we wouldn't have been like, all right, throw it in forget it. We would have kept going. But like, we
would have been the Deep Impact Armageddon situation.
It wouldn't have been that, but it would have been like, shit, so people are going to compare us to that. And by the way, there are examples of it that exist, right? So there's the Borderlands gun, which is more of a joke. There's another one that, I can't remember. There's a few examples of this. So it's not like we're taking it to like full-blown companions. Like these guys are like, like Dragon Age style, like, they've got...
Right.
backstory, they've got personality. If you have them out, they've got a lot to say. And each, depending on what gun you're using, you're going to get completely different, dialogue, information.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that while we've been playing it today.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah, so I've got a couple more Rick and Morty things for you, but since we're on the subject of Squanch and High on Life, I'm curious. What have you learned about the business of making games?
Oh man, a lot.
That you that maybe like you wish you'd known going in, or because I think that's like me. I've been covering games for 20 years, but I've never made a game. I've never started a studio, and I think a lot of us that play and love video games, we might think about that side of it sometime. But I'm curious, as somebody you've been on both sides of the fence now.
There's so much shit that I don't even know what I can say publicly because it's like like developers, so like I absorb, I'm glued to like stories. I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of like, train wreck production. Like I mentioned Matt McMuscles before, like his What Happened series, and there's a bunch of other really great people on YouTube making just really quality little well-researched kind of documentaries about all of the pitfalls and just insanity of game development. And, there's just so much shit you learn. It's like, without getting into details, it's like, we're in really good shape on our game, like, thank God. But, you can see how, like, games get shipped before they're ready. Like, you can see, like, why it happens. There's so much politics. There's so much, like, there's relationships at stake. There's partnerships. There's marketing deals that are in place that you'll lose. It's just so much. I mean, again, I might be saying too much here, but like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that developers. It's a fucking and developers can't just publicly say, look, here's transparently what's going on, why this happened, and so it's like this. Oh God, and as a gamer and as a fan of games and a consumer of like like one of my biggest pastimes, it's crazy to see. And to now be inside of it and to kind of know, because it makes me much more forgiving of, or at least to see the other side a lot of times, where I'm just like, fuck, and then I speculate, like, I bet you, like, okay, well, not to get into, but like CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk 2077, sure. I don't know, like, so I'm speculating, and I'm thinking like, okay, and I'm just trying to think about what happened there, like what happened with this. And I'm sure we'll get a really great YouTube, like, well-researched. There'll be an
oral history somewhere down the line.
Maybe Matt McMuscles will dive, or maybe he already has and I haven't seen it. But anyway, like, I'd love a really well-researched, like, honest, like, here's what we know. But I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they're a publicly traded, or they're like, they have what's it called? Shareholders or whatever.
Yeah.
Just people that are like, and I don't know. I speculate, but it's like, it becomes. It's like, obviously the golden rule is like a good game is always good. An early, game is, or I don't know what is the famous saying? It's like
a delayed game.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
A delayed game, no one remembers the delay. If it's good,
right.
Can you remember when? There's a
when
great
Halo
example.
2 got delayed.
Exactly.
No one cares.
Nobody fucking remembers that. They just remember the game's fucking awesome and that's the legacy of the game. But when you rush it and you ship it too early, it's permanent. It's like that first impression. It's just permanently.
Yeah, it takes years to turn around, like No Man's Sky. Like they got there, but it took a long time.
And God bless them, because that's a really good example with Hello Games of turning, just
winning the public over
exactly.
a second time.
Yes, which is very difficult to do. But they were like they knew what they were wanting to make. They had the ambitions, and I think it was a little Peter Molyneux-esque of like, all these promises that were eventually going to happen. But I just think that they didn't realize maybe how long it was going to take to get there. But whatever, over-promising, that's a whole other thing. But I think the problem is it's like when you're dealing with like a big title that's got a lot of ambition, a lot of ambition, specifically with Cyberpunk 2077. It's like, they just had a ticking clock, and it was like, fuck. And I think it was a lot of politics, red tape, and stuff that was forcing them to. They had to ship on this date for whatever reason, and I don't know yet. I will find out at some point, but. And I'm positive the people in that studio knew, like they were just like, fuck, like we needed to, your instinct is let's delay the fucking game, but then there's 1,000 reasons why, you can't. I'm probably saying way too much.
You did delay your game.
We did. We did.
A couple months. You're staying in 2022. Which,
and that wasn't us. That was, well, again, never mind.
Actually, so I wanted to stay on this because, again, being someone who has been on both sides of the fence now, I'm curious what you can educate us on with regard to
the delay.
Not even the delay. Actually, just kind of tangential to that. Of exclusives are such a big thing in the games business, right?
Yeah.
You're an Xbox exclusive. You're a Sony.
Sure.
In this case, you guys signed up with Microsoft for this.
Game
and
Pass,
I'm curious, like, how does that, like, literally, how does that come about? Like, are you out pitching High on Life to publishers, and Microsoft likes it and says, hey, we'll make you some financial guarantee if you get it on Game Pass and make it exclusive to our console? I'm just curious of what you can say without breaching any contracts.
Now, this is so funny.
How does that exclusivity deal come about? You're an indie studio. You could have put it on every platform. You could have put it on PC only. You could have signed with Sony.
The answer's simple. It's so funny because this is like where I miss Tanya. Like we're still.
Yeah, she'd been a producer at Epic for a long time.
We're still buddies, but like she would always be at these and just be like, like she was really good about that. But now I'm just like, okay, I have all these answers. I think that the big answer is just being an indie studio, and making such an ambitious game. Early on, we don't have a big like Trover wasn't like a huge revenue stream hit for us. It certainly did well enough. I think it's one of the better titles on the Quest, and I love the Quest. I'm in VR constantly.
Yeah.
But obviously, I made the game. I'm biased, right? Like I wanted to get. I make games I want to play. I make games that don't exist that I want to experience. And of course, by the time I'm done working on them, I'm like, I can't. I'm done.
Well, you're just like about most developers like that.
Yeah, I've played it enough. I'm good. I got to wait a long time and then go back to it later, and I'm like, whoa, or I'm like, oh, I don't know. But maybe a mixture. But in any case, it's a money thing. So at that, we were so deep into production that it was pretty easy for us to slap together a really good like vertical slice. And our philosophy is, we're sort of like, we'll go to publishers, as a last ditch, if we had to. But I think the smarter move for us is to just talk directly to the platform holders. So talk to Microsoft, talk to Sony. We've got good relationships with both. And that was our plan.
Right, you did Trover for Sony.
Yeah, and it was, obviously, there's been a lot of like change, like a lot of people left that we were really like, close with, but we still have really good connections and relationships with the people that are there currently. We have obviously a great relationship with the folks at Microsoft, and so we just like let them play the demo, and we went to other people outside of those two just because you cast a wide net, and we were like, if we don't, it's either we raise more capital for the studio, like with some sort of like series, some sort of Silicon Valley style, fun, what's it called, VC style money raise. Or we get a deal with one of these platform holders, or we go to a publisher. If you bring it and the game is really of good quality and interesting, or doing something new, or doing something unique, or whatever, we're trying to do something more like classic, single player Metroidvania first-person shooter action adventure, like with upgrades, and obviously with this massive umbrella of like crazy comedy narrative.
Yeah.
To the point of just as ambitious as you can get in that department with the cast and everything else, but so Game Pass was just like, it made sense. It was like, yeah, this is really smart for us, I think.
So my understanding is that there are different models for sort of different deals to be made with when it comes to Game Pass.
And I'll be truthful. That's where my lane at the studio is creative and big picture and then sometimes getting into the minutia of like certain like feel or jokes or timing. But and then obviously early days, big picture, global, like what's the big narrative, what's the world, what's the characters. But when it comes to that, I have no fucking idea. That's my CCO, Fridley. He would know all that shit. But yeah, I have no clue what our
so it's
where we are.
Already being knee deep into production, I imagine you're getting some kind of backstop against that investment, and then your game's on Game Pass where you've got a pretty
Steam,
good chance.
It's going to be on Steam. It's going to work on the Steam Deck. I've been playing it on the Steam Deck, just the dev, our dev build, and it's like. It plays great. It's fucking awesome.
What'd you learn?
Burping, like.
Well, you know what? Hey,
don't normally do that. I'll tell you why.
I have a burp take. Rick and Morty question. Yeah, that's fine.
You got a little happy juice.
Well, get some of that in your system. I'm curious. I guess we're gonna come back to the burping.
Okay.
Hold the thought on that.
Oh,
but
Jesus,
since we're talking high on life, what'd you learn from Trover, good and bad? That's lessons of making that game that are applied to High on Life.
Oh God, there's probably a lot of stuff that I'm just trying
like
to
top
think,
level, the biggest one or two.
Okay, so I'll be honest. So the first thing I ever did was accounting, and that was with William.
I remember,
Crows guys, Stanley Parable, and they just released Stanley Parable Deluxe, which I highly recommend. If you haven't played it, get it. It's like a whole new game basically, but they should have just called it Stanley Parable 2. I don't know, but whatever. I don't know. But anyway, amazing. And so we got together and we did a VR experience, and it was just a game jam thing, but it was so simple in terms of like thinking about, trigger volumes, or just when a player picks up a thing, this audio plays. When they set it down, it goes back to the base audio. When they pick up this thing, this audio plays. It's very like baby's first, if you were to talk about this in traditional, gaming, it's like, well, yeah, fucking, that's how they've been doing it since the beginning. But for some reason in VR, it was just so crazy. Like it was so weird, that little tree guy yelling at you, get the fuck out of here, whatever. I was doing his voice. I was like, fuck you, I was trying to tap into, who's the actress with who cares? Anyway, but anyway, so yeah, I was like, just fuck you, get out of my tree place, and then you pick up a thing, hey, don't pick that up, and it's very like, he's so aware of you, and you're in the environment, like actually there, that it just hit the brain in a different way. But that was a great one, because I was sitting there typing, I was like, okay, this trigger is going to be all of this dialogue, this trigger is all of this dialogue, and then I'm writing Dom and William's stuff as the guys on the phone, and then we would go in and record, and then they would just take the script and go off. But they would make it their own, and then everyone we got would kind of go in and
70% improv you talked about.
Yeah. And that one was like a 50-50 kind of thing, but it turned out so good, and so we released that for free, and then of course later I flew to Germany and we did all the extra stuff for Accounting Plus, and then we sold that one for a very fair, I think, price for what it is. But and there's all kinds of Easter eggs and cool shit if you want to keep like, trying to figure out how to find stuff. But that was the real one where I'm like, oh, okay, like I see how this works. Like almost like it's not that crazy for at least what my job can be. Like I can, and so going into Trover, we really blew that out with like trigger volumes and like, things that we know the player did, eliciting a line of dialogue that really makes the world feel alive. And it's like, and then going into High on Life, we really kicked that shit up, so Trover it's a weird first person, third person VR hybrid. So you're there, you're controlling Trover, you can pop up and down to get a better vantage point. You can, it's really fun. It's a great action platformer. If nobody's played it, I promise you won't be disappointed. Although there is a lot of swearing, so maybe not for the kids. I don't know, but it's really, if you like Moss, if you like any of those, we did a whole ad campaign joking about Moss. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I reviewed that game. It's one of my favorite VR games.
It's a great VR game. I feel like it kind of got overlooked, but if you haven't played it, it's a great one. But and obviously I'm biased, but I will say that, like, in that game you have Trover. That's it, right? You and Trover. So we obviously Trover has a lot to say, and it's very interactive, and he's talking about, you're moving him around, so when you do a thing, he's going to comment, and it's really cool, and it just feels cool when you're doing that in VR. So then we were like, well, okay, now we're talking about a game with 4 characters. These are 4 fully fleshed out characters. They are each a complete Trover in a sense. So it's like writing 4 video games,
Yep.
And players are really only going to hear the dialogue of whatever gun they're using in any given situation. So it's like, it's highly replayable if you want to like experience, and depending on choices you make, it completely it eliminates like certain things. There's just a lot in this game that one of our things that we were excited about is like, not that we're pushing like a replay, like we want this to be heavily replayable. It just turned out that way, where it's like, if you really want to see all kinds of stuff, you're going to want to go in and try different guns in different scenarios. You're going to want to like rescue guns in different order.
You're not doing the Dying Light 2 thing of, our game's 400 hours long.
No, not at all.
Everybody's like, whoa, hold on.
This is more of like a BioShock or some of my favorite games, in this genre are the kind that have that Metroidvania exploration upgrade tree with like really cool new abilities that really affect traversal, that affect combat, new enemies that change how combat scenarios work. And then obviously the guns in and of themselves are upgradable and also have special abilities that do all kinds of cool shit. And the order that you rescue them, it changes. So you can go back and replay the game and rescue another gun first and then go play a mission with that gun now and hear all of that gun's dialogue. So there really is like a high, and then also not to mention just all the other crazy like weird shit that we put in. There's a lot to see in this game, but and that wasn't like a, they talk about pillars, in game development. It's like, okay, what are our main 3 pillars? We knew like first class shooter, like really with like really cool traversal upgrade mechanics. We wanted obviously comedy and story, like really like great actors, great fun NPC experiences, just surprises. I can't remember the third one. I'm sure whatever. Metroidvania, like really good boss fights. 2
pillars then.
Yeah, 2 pillars. Fuck it. I know there was 3, but then what we kind of discovered the deeper we got in is like, oh hey, like we kind of accidentally like have this really highly replayable game, because if someone's a real big fan of it, like, and they want more, it's there, exactly like, okay, well, I'm going to go and do it this way now, instead of that way. And it's not just like one big this way or that way. It's like, there's big ones and then there's just a ton of like little ones. So, and it's not to the point of like Until Dawn or like Quarry, where I'm pretty sure those guys, that's their main, that's like the pillars.
Oh yeah.
Like we want 1,000
8 endings or
permutation.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. We're not like going that crazy, but there is a lot of fun stuff, and we really are good about palate cleansing, making sure that players are getting like a lot of fun shooting and action, and then we get some fun comedy bits and some downbeats, and then we're back into and also a lot of opt-in. Like I really am a big firm believer of like, let the player, as much as we possibly can, let the player decide when they want to hang out with an NPC and just listen to crazy shit. If they want to bone out and keep playing the game, let them do it. Like, don't lock anyone down. I mean, in this game, in Trover, never. No one was ever locked down, ever. In this game, we kind of had to in certain spots because there's just such a bigger story that, so early game, there's more of that. But then as you get deeper in, it just kind of opens up. And we really, every time we had a moment, we always were like, okay, can we unlock the player? Can we let the player just bounce and keep playing the game, or just do whatever they want to do? Because to me, that's the, if we can do that, then let's do it and let's figure out how to do it. And so that was our, this game, there's so much shit to hear. Even just with an enemy encounter, if you just sort of sit back and hang out and listen to the enemies, they're going to talk for so fucking long, and you'll hear the funniest shit if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you want to just keep going and start the combat encounter, by all means. You won't even notice. You won't even know what you missed. You know what I mean? So it's really like, there's a lot of stuff. It's really cool.
Any direct game inspirations for this? Because I'll tell you, finally sitting down to play it myself today, there's a little Oddworld vibe to it.
Oh, for sure. Lauren Lanning stuff. Like, you know, it's funny. I don't. It was never intentional. It was never like a. It was more subconscious, you know, because I played all this stuff. I truthfully had never played Stranger's Wrath until much like recent, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, God damn, like this is fucking amazing. It's incredible. If you haven't played it, like God damn, like it's on the Switch. If you, it's really good. Funny, you know, it's so like close to what we're doing for sure. You know, building a whole alien world, like you know, here's a big lesson that I learned tertiarily, or just you know from the outside looking in with Jim Henson. So Jim Henson did Dark Crystal, right?
Yeah.
It bombed, and I remember him watching an interview or reading something about him talking about how he believes the problem was there wasn't that human element, that sort of grounded, you know, a human being to kind of like, you know, it was almost too alien, too, you know, the Gelflings weren't enough for you to like transpose, you know, or like look at them and they're the protagonists I relate to. They were too weird and uncanny valley, and like, at least that's what he felt was one of the problems with it. I obviously absolutely adore that movie. And then you go into, so then he made the change with Labyrinth, where he's like, okay, I'm gonna cast Connolly, I'm gonna have Bowie. Obviously, what a fucking get, you know, to get fucking David Bowie. But anyway, so they, you know, we'll have human characters at the core of the narrative, and then we'll have all the craziness around them. And that was kind of the approach I wanted to go with in this game, was like, I want a grounded human, you know, story here, and then we go off into Alice in Wonderland, you know, or, you know, Narnia or whatever. That's like my favorite kind of way to do it. And so, you know, getting back to like Stranger's Wrath, it was, I don't know, honestly, I feel that game got robbed. I don't know why it didn't do as well as it did initially, because it really is a great game. But part of me can't help but wonder, like, maybe if there was some kind of, you know, grounded, you know, human way into it. Obviously, that would completely wreck and change. It would be a page one rewrite for the game. I don't know how you do it, but anyway, the game's amazing, and that's a great example of like, you know, living ammo and like all the kind of weird kind of stuff we're doing here. And we had a lot of stuff we had to cut that really was like very even more similar with like ammo and ideas like that. And obviously, like, I did play the fuck out of Oddworld, you know, the originals, and Munch's Odyssey I played on the Xbox, and, you know, I don't think I finished it, but I played quite a bit of it, and then Strangers, I was one of those idiots that didn't get it when it first came out, you know, and now you play it now and it's like, it holds up really well.
Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's marketing, you know, it
like
can be anything.
It's a perfect storm of a lot of things, and I don't even understand it, and
that's where, you know, that's one reason I was actually, because I'll be honest, I said this live on the air, so I'm not like just sitting here kissing your ass, but I High on Life was one of my standout games from the Xbox showcase. It just seemed fresh, it seemed new.
Thank you. Yeah.
And honestly, like, I'm kind of happy that it's coming out in December, because then it's not near Call of Duty. You know, these games with 100 times your marketing budget, or you know, I mean, God of War is going to be out there.
But very different too.
But they're still
I still
competing for time.
Absolutely.
And for, like, a lot of people only have you know, enough money for one or two games in the fall, and you know, obviously you're doing Game Pass, which is great, but you're still, there's only 24 hours in a day.
I know. Well, but that's what, you know, we knew going in, like, this is a really awesome, you know, well-crafted single-player action adventure. There's Metroid, you know, inspiration, you know, the whole lock and key, the upgrade tree with like new awesome mechanics that you get all the way throughout the game that really change how you traverse and get around the world, and also the new guns really open up like all kinds of stuff. So, you know, even like Prime and then, you know, I mentioned BioShock before, but like, you know, really good first-in-class kind of shooter mechanics, really polished, really cool traversal and fight, like the dash and the dodge and these upgrades you get along the way. that kind of stuff. But ultimately, like making a game that's like, hey, so this is a really good, like just solid, 15-hour, like, awesome game that you can obviously spend way more time if you want to go back in, or if you want to sit and hang out and listen, or literally watch the fucking 4 movies that are in there. There's full-length 4 movies in this fucking game. One of them has commentary throughout the whole movie too, by the way.
There's that MST3K influence.
Literally, yeah. It's very much that. 100%. It's very much that. But there's a lot in this game, but the core A path is, around 12, 15 hours. And that was by design, because it was like, there's not a lot of, like right now there's a lot of like, hey, this is a game you can play forever, or hey, this is a, microtrans free to play. There's a lot of like, the gaming industry has sort of gone in a lot of different interesting directions. But my favorite shit is like, give me a Shadow of Colossus, give me a...
Yeah, I don't need a game that's a job that I have to play for 80 hours.
I love Minecraft.
Sure.
I have a like weird, like on and off addictive, I'll fall into a Minecraft hole for like 4 months or a few months, and I'm just like suddenly, okay, I'm out of it. But then it happens again. It's happened over and over and over. I have a server, by the way. If anyone wants to play on my Minecraft server, it's chuntus.com. So please, go populate Chuntus. It's a vanilla anarchy server. Chuntus, CHUNTUS.com. Please go check it out and enjoy. I might dive back in if I see it's like popping off, but.
You gotta humor me. Let me come back to Rick and Morty for a couple minutes before I let you go. I've been keeping you here for a while.
No, it's fine.
I'm
almost out of water. Look at that.
Look at this.
That's how I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna make it last. I'm gonna really like.
Well, you've got your secret stash over there still. Next
this helps. This stuff helps.
Yeah, you're in good shape.
Yeah, I guess.
Just out of curiosity, like, where did Rick and Morty's voices come from? I'm always curious to ask that of voice actors. That like, where is it? Do you see the character in your head first, or do you hear the character in your head first?
The truth is, it was a sloppy, shitty impression of Doc and Marty, or from Back to the Future. And what happened was, I don't remember when or where, but it was a bunch of Channel 101 people. We're all at a bar, and we were out front of the bar. It's such a hazy memory, but I remember like. There was this bit we used to do, like Ridley would be, like Harmon, Ridley, Drew, Hancock, Wade Randolph, I remember was there. Just a bunch of these like, just Channel 101, like early days, like people. And there was a bit where it was like this fake like fight. Whoa, 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 whoa. Everyone's breaking each other up, but the joke was there's not really a fight happening, but it's just like everyone's trying to break up a fight all at once. And it was fucking hilarious. And then somewhere within that, somebody did a Doc and Marty impression. Not me. Somebody else started doing it. I wish I could remember who it was. And I was like, then I started doing mine. And then it was sort of like, I don't even know if anyone heard me do mine. It was sort of, and then it went back to the whoa, whoa, whoa thing. And we were all drunk and I don't remember. But I remember like when I was doing mine, I was like, ooh, I like that, like a lot. And so it stuck with me. And then I went back and I was like, okay, my next Channel 101 short is going to be this like really filthy, because I had just come off of this other job that was like a Spike TV video game, kind of comedy sketch show, but video game centric. And I think it was Bert Kirshner was the host maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's great. But I never really got to hang out with him or meet him. I was the animation producer, and Savan and like, Stephen Chun, like my core animation team from Channel 101 days, I just hired all those guys. I was like, let's just make the cartoons for this. We can just do it ourselves. And but we also farmed things out to certain other like animation studios. But anyway, so after that job, it was just like, dude, the notes we got and like how just restrictive it was, and we couldn't really just make good shit. It was brutal. It was like, we can't get one past the fucking goalie here. Like let us just make a fucking good thing. Don't like trust. Like, what's the worst that'll happen? They were very metal at Spike TV, very meddlesome. It was fucking bonkers. But anyway, so I come out of that and I just was like, I had all this pent up like, and also I was thinking, I just want to make something that's going to make an audience of 400 people scream and cover their eyes. And I wanted to feel that energy. I wanted to be anonymous in that theater room and hear because I'd done it once before with a thing called Unbelievable Tales, where it's just fucking awful, fucked up, just dark, horrible, the worst kind of dark humor, which was more acceptable back then than it is now. People would watch that now and go, oh God, oh. But it's like, look, I made it because that was the point. I wanted to sit in the audience and I just wanted to see an audience like. I wanted to hear the crowd like shriek and like, oh fuck, oh God. And so I did that with this Doc and Marty short, and it was so fun, man. And then coming out of it, I was like, I really like these voices. There's something more to these voices that I can make them my own and do something different. And then I kind of I sold a lot of shows, in between then and Rick and Morty. And I was always putting those voices and those different incarnations of those characters into the shows, and sort of figuring out like, okay, and they'd be very different each time, like personality, but it was those voices still. And like one of them was called Relative Insanity, and there was like a grounded, normal, sane guy with an insane family, and the triplets were the Morty voice, but all three of them sounded, but they had a little more of like a British hint
affect,
to it. Yeah. But just more breathy, than Morty. But no one would know the difference. Like you do Morty, and it's like I could do all the different versions, and that's just Morty. Like and I'm like that's fine. I don't. I'm the first one to admit I've got like I'm the master, or not even the master. I'm the voice actor with maybe 3 voices, I'm working on I'm workshopping some others because it's like, it's getting time where it's like, all right, enough. We've heard the Morty voice. We can do something else. But anyway.
All right, I got to let you go in like 5 minutes here.
Okay.
I'm being told by my crew that I've kept you for too long.
That's fine.
Can you just tell me real quick about the burp takes? Are those like, can you make yourself burp, or do you like do you go in with a soda beforehand or a beer beforehand?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot. So in the early days it was like a really low calorie like light beer kind of worked really well. Yeah. Like a 64 calorie. Yeah. You'd have to drink 50 of them to get a buzz, kind of thing. That worked really well, and then it went to SodaStream. So Sydney, our producer on the show back then, would bring in SodaStream, and I was like, this is chef kiss good. Like it would work. But now it's just LaCroix works. But yeah, the problem is I can't just do it. I have to like drink, and then like I'll tell Ricky, my engineer, like, okay, let it roll. Just let it roll.
It's got to bubble up.
It'll come when it comes, and I'll feel it. But like, let's just keep going. Let's continue, and then when it happens, I'll jump back. But just leave it open. and so he and we just I'm so jealous of Sarah Chalk because she can just burp, like she can just do it like instant, like so effortlessly, and I'm like. And by the way, like in the early days, that was kind of part of the sloppy, like absurd nature of Rick, is the burping in the middle. It's just like, and then the deeper we got into the show, and also combined with the fact that it wasn't just easy for me to like do, it was like, well, let's dial it back. I mean, Harmon, like in the pilot, I think he burped every fucking line. And it was like, we gotta pull this back. Like Harmon was like, we gotta pull this back. And I was.
It cracks me up every time, though.
I wasn't arguing though. I was like, yeah. And also, oh man, I remember like that pilot record, like because every line.
It's a lot of beer.
I had to get a burp. I had a clean and a burp take, but was I drinking beer for that? I might have been, but like, yeah, I was sick, man. I had an awful stomach ache from just. It was fucking bad. I was like, luckily never had that again. But
well, let's wrap on High on Life, because that's what you're here to promote.
Yeah, High on Life.
That's the game. It's out in December on PC, Xbox, and Game Pass. Any ideas kicking around for Squanch's next game yet?
We have a lot of really fun smaller swings. We've got the bigger stuff we want to do. I think look, without getting too into it, the studio is just getting started. It's a passion project for me. I'm so grateful and blessed. Not that I'm religious. I don't know what the fuck happens when we die, but something spiritual, right? But I'm very, very, very grateful for all these amazing people that are a part of the team that believe in the vision of the studio and all the cool shit we want to do. And we've got a lot of stuff we want to do, and there's a lot of cool unannounced stuff that we're excited to share with the world when the time is right. And but this is our first big swing in the traditional game space, I guess, is if as opposed to VR game. And we really hope it does well, because that gives us the money that we need to. It's not cheap, man, making games. It's like you got to be. We have a decent sized studio, and like the burn is like it's like the monthly burn just for our team, and that's games, man, and also animation. It's all the blood, sweat, and tears of talented people, and that's it. That's where the money goes, is to those people, and you want to be good to them. You want to make sure that they're getting paid well, and and they're being treated well. So and just very grateful to have it, and we have a lot of fun shit coming. But
in the meantime, High on Life. Justin, thank you so much for sitting down.
You.
High on Life out this December on PC, Xbox, and Game Pass. Check it out. And for more
and Epic Game Store. Hey, what do you know? Also
all
Epic
the PC
Game
platforms. We're covering High on Life all month long right here on IGN.